Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to episode 12 of the South Jersey Starting Nine podcast. This is your home for everything in South Jersey baseball, from the high school level to the collegiate level, and everything in between, and of course the professionals as well. But we'll have more time to talk about the college and the pros when it's summertime, and right now it's sectional season. We've got the first two rounds of the playoffs are done. The public semis will be Wednesday. The public sectionals will be Friday. And right now, the biggest thing is we're going to talk about the first two rounds of the playoffs in all four South Jersey brackets. We're going to highlight a little bit of the non-publics, but I think what's more important as of right now is we're going to talk about groups 1, 2, 3, and 4. Obviously, there were a lot of upsets. There were a lot of things that really changed around. Group 3 was the bracket that I thought was going to be full of chalk, but instead it ended up being the opposite. The highest seed remaining is a 4. That's going to be really interesting to talk about. We're also going to talk about at one point or another, best performances from these two, who we think is going to go all the way, maybe which South Jersey teams are most likely to hang a banner at Rutgers, or who is most likely to win the state championship this year, because obviously South Jersey had a handful of state winners last year with Northern Burlington and Cherokee, and of course Gloucester Catholic as well. But I think what's more important for us is, before we get to Rutgers, let's talk about how the people get there. Obviously, last year was the road to Veterans Park, road to Hamilton. Now it's the road to Rutgers. But I'm still very excited for this. Nonetheless, we got a very busy week coming up. We got Holy Spirit Bishop Eustace tomorrow. We've got Toms River North and Toms River South and Delsey on Wednesday, and then Thursday and Friday up in the air as of this time. But we're not going to waste too much time. We're going to get into it. It's a beautiful day outside, and I don't like staying inside too often. So I think we're going to get into it, and we're going to start talking about some playoffs. But we're going to start with Group 1. First thing I wanted to talk about with Group 1 is this was a lot chalkier of a bracket than I think a lot of people let on, because one thing I wanted to highlight in the first round was how many games were just straight up non-competitive. I mean, you had Shalleck 23-0 over Cape May Tech. You had Wildwood 10-3 over Paulsboro. Haddon Township was 19-1 as the 3 seed. The 2 seed Woodstown won 12-0. And then the 4 seed Maple Shade, how about this, that they've won both of their playoff games by 2 runs. They've been playoff risers for the past couple of years now. They won 2-1 over Riverside, 4-3 over Wildwood, and now they're set for a semifinal date versus Shalleck. My voice just tried to, it just didn't work. But no, this has been more or less what we've expected. I'm not all that surprised that Pennsville made it to the semifinal round. I think they were seated a little bit low for the amount of strength of schedule that they've played, but don't get me wrong, Haddon Township's also played a very, very strong strength of schedule. Looking at those second round games, though, Shalleck beat Audubon 5-1. That was a game that was tied 1-1 going to the bottom of the sixth inning, and then Shalleck put up 4 runs. Wildwood Maple Shade, I didn't look into that too much, but it's 4-3. Pennsville ran away with it late, a game that had a decent amount of errors in it, and then Woodstown 5-1 over Buna. I mean, for what it's worth, the one surprise I had in the first round was Buna beating Glassboro by 6 runs. I thought that game was going to be a lot closer. I mean, let's be honest, Kevin Minnick went there. If he went there,
Yeah.
I'm sure he thought it was going to be competitive too. But there were some games here that I did not think were going to be that competitive, and they ended up being that kind of strength. As like we said, Audubon over Gateway 3-0. Looking at the box score, they had 10 runs. I mean, they did. I'm sorry, 10 hits. They did pretty well for themselves. And this is a game where, as we said, Audubon lost to Gateway in the regular season, and both pitchers went the full way. Matt Brogley for Audubon, Zach Brodsky for Gateway. And, I mean, just pretty much almost everybody hit. You had Brogley, Caladros, Bozarth, Pilla, Schofield, Pachowski, and Owens. Listen, even though Audubon's out of the second round and having their first under 500 season in a long time, I think that is still something that Audubon can pivot with. They still have a very legendary head coach in Rich Horan. I wouldn't be surprised if they pivot on that young core. They get Evan Paxos in for some extra work. Obviously, Connor Chester and Kate Schofield are going to be a good senior pair of, a good duo of seniors in 2027. But I'm just also a little bit surprised at like Pittman-Pennsville. I didn't think that game was going to be as close as it was, but Pittman held in until the very end. They were tied 4-4 at one point. They really ended up slugging it out until the end. Pittman got a run back at the end. They did throw Kieran Clark in that game, who, as I've said, is one of my favorite up-and-coming lefties in South Jersey. He did walk five, but he struck out five in the game, and he had 5 innings pitched as well. Drew Keefe pitched to the last. And then as we mentioned before, it was Maple Shade over Riverside, 2-1. Maple Shade had to score 2 runs in the bottom of the sixth to win it. 2 RBIs came on a single from Lucas Voiro. Maple Shade is one of those teams that just sometimes it really does slip my grasp, because in 2021 they were the number 1 seed in Group 1. They lost in the second round. They won 21 games that year. And then last year they were the 5 seed. They beat Pittman, who was, I believe, the 4, and they ended up making the semifinals, losing to Audubon, but they still held their own in that game too. They're a team that, I mean, to be quite honest, Maple Shade doesn't play the toughest of competition in that division. And I mean, Bordentown's solid. Pennsauken is good. That division is getting better, but there have been years where Maple Shade just, they play okay in the regular season, and then they just find new life in the playoffs. I wouldn't be surprised if that Shalleck Maple Shade game is closer than people expect.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It seems like Maple Shade always finds a way to somehow win in the playoffs, and that's when it matters most. Like I said last week on the episode, a win is a win. It doesn't matter. Like you said, like they won by 1 run in both games, but they're moving on. And that Shalleck game, I think Shalleck knows it's going to be tough. Shalleck was tied with Audubon in the second round, like you said, at 1-1. They might have been a little bit scared there, but I think Shalleck is ready for a test, and Maple Shade, I think they got nothing to lose, put everything on the line, and they could find themselves in a sectional final.
Exactly. Looking at who they threw in those first 2 games, because that was played on Thursday and Friday back to back. They threw R.J. Bozarth for 5 innings in the first game, Chad Blum for 2. Now R.J. Bozarth is a pretty good right-hander. Then they threw Braden Morgano for 5 innings. I mean, their pitching really did some heavy lifting. Now, I would say I was a little bit surprised that Wildwood lost to Maple Shade, but I would also say that Wildwood having to bear that almost 2-hour trip to Maple Shade, that is a far trip, and it's certainly something that I definitely don't envy of them. They had 3 RBIs, but their young core really did a lot, and I think that Wildwood. First of all, thanks to Brian Kniff, because us covering Wildwood for a few games this year really showed me how young of a team they truly are. They've got 2 cousins, Trevor Troiano and Gianni Troiano. Now, Trevor Troiano has had 49 hits this past season, which was crazy. He's up near 80 hits right now, and he's an uncommitted junior. He's a dog on the mound too. He just plays both ways. He's your very prototypical Group 1 player. He's somebody that can play any position, anytime, anywhere. He's a great player. They've got some great freshmen too. Lewis Sewell. I'm blanking on one of the other names, but Lewis Sewell is definitely a name that is really good. Michael McWade is a sophomore. Owen Bannon is another one who's basically their number 2 starter as a freshman. They really just had to figure stuff out, but the one thing that got me was that Braden Morgano for Maple Shade, he walked 6 batters in 5 innings, and they still got away with the win. So sometimes it's a matter of how baseball falls apart in the playoffs, and if you don't have it on a certain day, you don't. But Pennsville beat Haddon Township 13-7. That was a game that had 25 combined hits. Pennsville had 13 runs on 15 hits. They scored 7 runs in the last 2 innings to get over the hump. Meanwhile, Haddon Township, 5 of their 7 runs came in the 3rd inning. They had 7 runs on 10 hits. Haddon Township didn't put in stats, but for Pennsville, of their 13 runs, Logan Streitz, 7 RBIs. Yep. How about that? 4 for 5, 3 doubles, a homer, and 7 RBIs. I think that has to go down as one of the best performances of the first 2 rounds so far.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, like 7 RBIs of the 13 runs he scored. He had the same amount of RBIs that Haddon Township scored runs. That's something to be proud of. Like you said earlier, Pennsville, they're not a traditional 6 seed. We kind of predicted that this was a tough matchup for Haddon Township, probably the toughest for one of the higher seeds in the second round, and Pennsville came out swinging. It was a long trip for Pennsville. That's not around the corner.
No.
So
about 30, 40, probably at 40 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, so 15 hits, 13 runs, and they're moving on, and that's going to be an incredible game in the semifinals. Again, I mean, like Pennsville knocked off Woodstown last year.
Yeah, that was a weird game under weird circumstances. I think the score of that game was 1-0, or it was something close
One
to that.
nothing or 2-1,
Yeah,
something
it
like
was a
that.
really low scoring game, but that was over at MSI Sports
Yep.
Complex. They played it in Chichester, Pennsylvania, because during the playoffs last year, we just had so much rain that everything got pushed back, and people were willing to do anything to play a game, which I really don't blame them, but it was really fun. But looking at my Group 1 bracket, I'll pull this up for a second here. My Group 1 bracket that I had filled out, I didn't have a lot of stuff wrong. I had the first round completely correct. The only thing I got wrong was that I had Maple Shade over Wildwood. I'm sorry, I had Wildwood over Maple Shade, which honestly, I don't think that there was. I think that that was as much of a toss-up game
Yeah.
as you could get, 5 versus 4. Now, I still believe, and I still have Pennsville going all the way. And the reason why I say that is I think that the way Shalleck played versus Audubon, just looking at that box score, the way that they played, they had Jamari Whitley. He struck out 13 batters. I don't think with a Wednesday start, he threw 110 pitches. I don't think he would be available, if I'm correct. So the best thing that they could go for is you can, looking at their pitch counts here. Um, no, I guess
Yeah, he's available, but
he would be available, but I think versus Maple Shade, I feel like Maple Shade's got a lot of momentum. And don't get me wrong, I think Shalleck is going to win versus Maple Shade. I don't think that's going to be an issue. But I think in the sectional final, if you look at what Pennsville's got ready to go, the only guy that they have to rest right now is Gavin Spears. Everybody else would be available on Wednesday. Um, you've got a lot of different players that are contributing on this team. This is a team where everybody contributes, everybody gets the job done. Logan Streitz has been a solid pitcher this year. Mason O'Brien has been a solid pitcher, sub 2 ERA in 46 innings. I think, honestly, the way that I would go about it for Pennsville if I'm Matt Carr is I throw either Grady Sanders or Mason O'Brien on Wednesday. And if I don't throw O'Brien on Wednesday, I throw him in the sectional
yep.
final. Because I have to imagine you're waiting on the guy with 46 innings and a 1.98 ERA to throw in that sectional final. And I really think that Pennsville's going to have guns ablazing. The one thing that I think that Shalleck is struggling with a little bit is just getting that offense going. You know, obviously the 5-1 win over Audubon was great. And I can talk about beating Cape May Tech 23-0 in the first round, but that's a 1 versus 16, and Cape May Tech had 5 wins. I mean, I'm not disparaging the program. I'm just saying that Shalleck is a team that they play all right versus opponents that are like them, but they do get a lot of games with lopsided numbers and a lot of big wins. Like they beat Pittman 16-4. They beat Pennsgrove. You know, when they beat Pennsgrove, they scored 27 runs on them both times. So their offense is good. It's a 3.94 average, but their ERA is a 3.73, and that's only a couple points better than what Pennsville's got at a 4.02. So I really think that that could be an even matchup. And when I put up on the bracket that I say that Pennsville could beat Shalleck, I'm not indicating a score. I'm not saying that Pennsville's going to blow Shalleck out of the water. I think that's going to be a really good Group 1 final, but I just think that Pennsville's got so much momentum. They have been waiting to win a sectional final for so long, ever since Chase Birchfield and Luke Wood, and even a few years before that, some of the guys that were there in like 2021 or 2022. Remember, they're only 10 years removed from a state
Yep.
championship when they beat Waldwick in 2016, but they have just perennially been a good team year over year. You know, I remember when I was starting out, and they had guys like Jared Vanderster on the team, who I believe is now pitching in Division II. They had J.D. Wilson, who was a solid player. You had Zach Haynes. Every single year, Pennsville just continues to produce great talent, and we're seeing that come to a form. And you got to wonder, it's just like the Rancocas Valley case. When you lose in the playoffs and you don't have an answer, you got to figure out whether or not you're going to have the right path moving forward to get into a good playoff position, and whether you can get a sectional final under your belt. So Group 2, we talked about Group 1. I don't think really there's much else to ponder in Group 2. I'm sorry, in Group 1. The first round was the first round, and then we talked about the second round a little bit. In Group 2, one thing I wanted to highlight is some of these second round games are a little bit wonky, but we'll talk about the first round. Haddonfield shut out Collingswood, I believe, in a no-hitter. It was, yes.
Yes.
So that was Will Solak threw 16 strikeouts, walked 2, no-hit Collingswood. Manchester beat Middle, which is what I predicted. I didn't think it was going to be a 6-run game, but those Shore Conference teams are always tough in any bracket that involves South Jersey teams because of the unfamiliarity. Seneca beat Lower Cape May 11-6. There was a late home run by Caden Elwell, but Seneca led pretty much the rest of the way. Sterling beat Gloucester 4-2. I definitely thought Sterling was going to put up a couple more runs, but their offense was struggling, and that's why they lost 1-0 in the second round. Cedar Creek run ruled Pleasantville. West Deptford only beat Medford Tech by 2 runs, and then Barnegat. I was a little bit surprised at this 7-10 game that it wasn't as close as it was. I think I remember saying last week when we previewed the playoffs, I said don't be surprised for Haddon Heights if their first round game was closer scoring than their second round game. I ended up being just totally wrong on that. What it ended up being was, or sorry, I put up the wrong thing. Barnegat beat Salem Tech 16-1, and then for Haddon Heights, they beat Mastery Camden by a score of 13-0, which
no hitter.
that was a no-hitter, and then they beat Barnegat 4-2. Now these two have met up in the playoffs before, but the weird thing about this quarterfinal here, Haddonfield versus Manchester, I thought Haddonfield was going to have an easier grip on it. I felt like the no-hitter was going to give them a lot of momentum. Still, a 5-run win is a 5-run win, but Manchester, they were shut out until the seventh inning. They got 2 runs late. Seneca beat Sterling 1-0. That run came in the fifth inning. Really quick game. And then the thing that I was most surprised by, Cedar Creek over West Deptford, a 13-run win, 14-1. Cedar Creek feels like they've got a ton of momentum going into the semifinal round.
Yeah, that was the most shocking result, I think, of this Group 2 bracket so far because West Deptford was lined up with their ace and Landon Delaney, and he just didn't have a good day at the office, and sometimes that happens in Cedar Creek. Mashed the ball. I mean, like, put up 14 runs in a 3-6 game. That's something to be pretty impressive of. Now, they put up 14 runs on 10 hits, so there were a lot of free passes in that game. And in the playoffs, that's going to hurt you. You have to limit the walks and limit the base runners, and West Deptford just didn't do that. And I think Cedar Creek is riding high. They've got a tough test coming up against Haddon Heights, though.
Yeah, that's going to be very tough. And I think one thing that we could say about West Deptford was that they beat Medford Tech 4-2. Maybe you could have said that they're with writing on the wall that they wouldn't have done well versus Cedar Creek. But no, you're absolutely right. Looking at that 14-1 game, Cedar Creek scored 8 runs in the bottom of the fourth inning. Obviously, it helps to be a home team where your opponent has to travel far. But yeah, 11 earned runs for Landon Delaney and 3 1/3, 6 Ks, 5 walks. Sometimes you just don't have it. And, if you're a team like Cedar Creek, this is another team that has been perennially quite very good. I remember, they were one of the top 5 teams in South Jersey in 2024. They were, like 13-1 in April in 2024, and then they lost like their last 8 games in a row, and they fizzled out of the playoffs. Last year, they ended up losing to Manchester Township in the first round as a 3 seed. So they didn't want to have that happen again. So to go from a 3 seed that lost in the first round to now kind of making up for lost time, being the 3 seed for a second year in a row, and now making the semifinals, that's going to be good for Cedar Creek. And then for Haddon Heights, just business as usual. Obviously, Jack Nichols has been out for the year. He's been hurt. That's one thing I want to talk about later is the fact that we have been robbed of a good pitching year. But Cole Simon threw 14 Ks, 7 innings. Barnegat scored 2 in the top of the first, but Haddon Heights clawed back 1 run in the bottom of the fourth, 3 in the fifth, and you had 2 RBIs from Jackson Mata, the senior. I forget where he's headed, but he's a very solid hitter, hitting almost 400 in his senior year. He is a dog of a player, and I've watched him play since he was a sophomore. He was always good then, always good now, but looking at the rest of this bracket and what's left, Haddonfield hosts Seneca, which these two played earlier in the in the 2025 regular season, and they met in the playoffs in 2023. But I think for Haddonfield, again, this is the bracket that I thought was going to be the chalkiest. This is the only bracket that I am proud to say that I have still right.
Yep.
That I had 5/4, Seneca over Sterling, and then every other pick is how I predicted it. But this is the bracket that I think, even though it's the chalkiest, it's the one that could produce the most fireworks in the sense that if you get a Haddonfield, Haddonfield Haddon Heights sectional final would be amazing. That would be Colonial Conference head to head. That would be awesome. But also Haddonfield versus Cedar Creek will be a really good sectional final as well. I feel like every combination of this Group 2 final would be great, even if Seneca upsets Haddonfield. If Seneca upsets Haddonfield and then plays Haddon Heights, well, you get for the third time in 4 years Seneca Haddon Heights in a sectional final. That's another storyline. And then Seneca Cedar Creek. I don't know. You're a Seneca guy. That might be a different story there. but I still think that that would be a darn competitive game if Cedar Creek was the home team there. So Group 2, I mean, I'm looking at all these different
Yep.
possibilities, and every single one of them is quite an appetizing possibility.
Yeah, I think Group Two is the story of revenge because Haddonfield they're still searching for the revenge from that 2023 when Seneca upset them. It was a 10-2 game. It wasn't close. Uh, and Haddon Heights they beat Cedar Creek in the 2022 sectional final. So Cedar Creek's looking to beat them. I mean, like if you go to Seneca Haddon Heights, that's 4 straight years they would have met in the playoffs. Now last year was in the first round, which kind of shocked everybody there. Seneca in a 15 seed, but that was still a close game, 9-6 final. So Haddon Heights is still looking to beat Seneca for a championship, and Haddonfield is looking to revenge that 2023 loss. Now they did beat Seneca in the playoff in the regular season the last 2 seasons in 24 and 25, but this is when it matters most. This is when they won it most. Any of these sectional final matchups are going to be thrilling, and these semifinals, I think both games are going to go down to the wire.
Yeah, I really think so, and I'm excited to see how that works. I mean, obviously, this will be huge to see Justin Singleton get a sectional final in just his fourth year. He came over in 2023, replaced Bob Bickle. He's really turned that program
Yeah,
around. They won
good
eight.
coach.
He won 8 games in. I'm sorry, Bob Bickle won 8 games in his last season, and then Singleton has had 15, 13, 24, and now 21 wins. He has turned that program around. Not to say that they were bad under Bob Bickle by any means, but um, they, were very good in 2019. Obviously, they made it to the Group 2 final, lost to West Deptford. But the thing about that 2019 team is that you had another one of those examples where they were just good in the entire regular season, but then the playoffs were a little bit more difficult than they thought. They made it to the sectional semi and they made it to the Diamond Classic. I'm sorry, I keep saying sectional semis, sectional finals. They made it to both the sectional final and the Diamond Classic final, and they lost both. So just a heartbreaking season back in 2019, and then they in 2021 went 9 wins, 11 losses. 2022 they go 8 wins, 11 losses, lost in the first round on the road as a 14 seed. And I think when Bickle stepped down, they kind of realized, hey, we need a change. They come in, they immediately turn it around, and they make it to the semifinals as a 4 seed. That's a big improvement. And looking at some of these brackets, I do like to focus on that sometimes. Is how do you turn it around from year to year? Looking at Group 2 right now, um, Haddonfield was the number 1 seed in back-to-back years, obviously, but um, what's it called for a team like Seneca? They were the 15 seed last year. Now they're the 5. They're in a little bit of a better position. They're in a better spot. And then sometimes it's just better to stay where you are. Cedar Creek has been the number 3 seed for the past 2 years. So I'm really excited for what these Group 2 matchups have in store. And even though it's a chalky bracket, it's still, I think, an exciting bracket, and I think it'll be one that's worth watching.
100%. Like I said, any of these sectional final matchups are gonna be fun to watch, and people are gonna want to be there. This is probably Seneca's last year in Group Two. If you look at the numbers of the highest Group Two
Mm.
school in terms of numbers, so they'll probably go back up to Group Three. I think they want to lay it on the line and try to win. I mean, like the senior class for Seneca could win 3 sectional titles in 4 years. That's something to be pretty proud of. But they know they have a test. Haddonfield knows that's not going to be an easy game for them, and I think Cedar Creek and Haddon Heights that could be a one-run game down to the wire.
Pivoting to Group 3, this is a bracket that I had entirely wrong, and I can explain why, at least to some degree, but this is one that really just almost every single pick I got wrong. Not every single pick, but more than half of the picks I got incorrect for the first and second rounds. So take a look at the Group 3 bracket. Clearview over Timber Creek, 9-4. I want to say I was a little bit surprised that 1 versus 16 game. I think honestly, we all are a little bit surprised when that 1 versus 16 game is close. And Timber Creek was tied 4-4 versus them at one point. Um, Timber Creek scored 4 runs in the third inning to tie it up, and then a 3-run six to put them over the top. Toms River South beat Highland on the road 10-2. Morristown beat Cumberland on the road. That was an upset, 12-5, 2-0. I was at that game. I'll be honest, that was a game that did not have a lot of playoff atmosphere, mostly because I think it was 1 o'clock on what was it? A Thursday? Yeah, it was. No, it was on a
Thursday.
yeah, it was Thursday. Okay, you're right, because of the rain. But Cumberland had to move that game up because of their prom that night, and I'm kind of sitting there and I'm just like, this is like odd. Like there weren't a lot of people there. There weren't a lot of people outside of parents, and I think school was still in session. So it felt a little bit odd to me. But Morristown still got the win. They won 2-0. It was a pitcher's duel for sure. Jonathan Rossi did an amazing job versus a solid Morristown lineup, and they ended up saying that, or I'm sorry, they ended up having Alex Berman, a left-hander who's got over 50 Ks. He's a dog. He's a great player. Very tall, lanky kid who just throws it from the top of the arm slot, and he's a great pitcher. Ocean City fell to Delsey 8-0. I honestly thought that game was going to be a little bit closer because of the Cape Atlantic American factor. I know Ocean City's a solid team. They just didn't have it versus Delsey. Toms River East beat Hamilton 6-3. Shawnee beat Absegami 6-1. Mainland beat Lacey 7-0, and Cherry Hill West beat Triton 5-3. So one thing that's surprising to me, or at least was surprising at the time to me about this Group 3 bracket, no run rules in that bracket at all.
Yep.
Honestly think that that's A, it's impressive, and B, it's a good thing. I always think that it's good to have competitive games all throughout, even in a 1v16, and I think that shows how wide open Group 3 is that even the 16 seed in Timber Creek, I saw them this year, and they were pretty solid. I saw them versus Overbrook, a team that missed the playoffs, and they were pretty good. I mean, they hung around 500 for a little while. They were at 8-7 entering May. They had a really bad losing streak for what it's worth, and I think that they got a bad luck of the draw. They ended up having to play Delsey and Highland back to back. They had to play 4 games versus them in the month of May, which ends up boiling down to that new TCC Liberty divisional format, which I think that other TCC divisions will adopt at some point. But my main point being that I thought Timber Creek, they played well for the fact that they were on a bad losing streak, and they finished 9-14. They got a late regular season win versus St. Joe's Hamilton on the road, but in the month of May, they won 2 games and they lost 6 of them. So I don't know what their PowerPoint would have been had it not be for those games, or if they had maybe a better luck of the draw. I don't think Morristown should have been a 12 seed. I think that they were seeded a little bit too low. But again, I don't really have a say in the argument when it's PowerPoints. It's math. I don't like arguing with
Yeah.
math, and I would say it's a lot better than the idea of arbitrarily seeding these divisions and seeding these sectionals depending on like a committee. It's not like we're doing CFP math or whatever. But looking at this bracket again, a lot of these games were close, and some of them weren't exactly close, but they were not run rules. Like Delsey over Ocean City, that wasn't a close game, but it wasn't a run rule. I mean, Kyle Harrison, who just flipped his commitment from Franklin Pierce to Camden County, along with his brother Connor, that's going to be a really loaded team in 2026. You've got, in 2027 for the Cougars, and then as we said, Morristown over Cumberland. TRS over Highland surprised me a little bit, but now that TRS for the second year in a row upset Clearview, because that's exactly what happened in the 5-4 game last year. I mean, Toms River South has to just be elated to see Clearview on their schedule, because every time they face them, something happens. But Clearview, really surprised that they got knocked out in the second round. I thought that this year was going to be better for them. Obviously, they still have a lot of young guys on the team. They got Luke Yeager, who's a freshman, and to have somebody that young be that impactful, I think is going to be great. You still have Josh Jurgen, who's a sophomore. You've got a couple other guys that are in that mix. Braden Cook, who's a junior, he'll go into his senior year. But this was the year to beat for Clearview, and I'm definitely surprised that as a 1 seed they went down to a number 9.
I am too. That was a shocking result. I know Toms River South is a very good program. Every year it seems like they're there and ready to compete with these South Jersey teams. But it's tough. Clearview was in the Diamond Classic final. It is tough to rest up less than 2 weeks later and ramp back up and try to win a sectional title and even a state title. I mean, like the last 3 years, 24 Cherry Hill West, they won the Diamond Classic. They were knocked out in the second round. Last year with Mainland, they won the Diamond Classic and were knocked out early. Now Clearview lost to Gloucester Catholic in the Diamond Classic final, but again, it is tough to ramp up that quickly again and win close games against tough opponents, and that's what happened. I think here, I think Clearview just didn't have enough rest, and Toms River South took advantage of that and we'll see what they can do in the semis against Delsey.
Well, remember that last year's sectional final was Toms River South versus Toms River East.
Yep.
TRE won that game 6-1, and obviously we are not the most well versed with the Shore Conference teams, but we've gotten to learn a little bit about them because of this playoff bracket. But Toms River South is just a team that seems to light it up every single year. I mean, 2023 was, or pardon, 2024 was Ken Frank's last year with TRS, and of course the winningest head coach in New Jersey history. I believe 973 is the total, but my goodness, I mean, I don't think anybody's touching that total for a long, long time. But in his last season in 2024, they go 5-18, 2 wins in the Shore A South Division, and they lost by 7 runs to Delsey. They were the 13 seed, and it wasn't competitive. So he retires. Jim Rankin takes over, and they immediately go 18-10. They beat Absegami. They beat Clearview. They beat Ocean City in last year's bracket, all as a 5 seed, all by 1 runs. It was 1-0, 2-1, and 4-3. Their pitching did the job. I mean, they did exactly what they needed to. They had Aiden Lynch on the mound, who he was a senior. He's not going to be here this year, but they have had so many good players over the years. We could see, how they're able to do it. Obviously, Aiden Moylan is probably the star on their team right now in terms of pitching. He had a sub-1 ERA as a freshman. I'm sorry, as a sophomore. He's got a sub-2 ERA as a junior, 1.91. He's already got 134 strikeouts in 2 seasons. I mean, the kid's
That's
insane.
incredible.
It's incredible. So I really think that if they throw Moylan on Wednesday, that's going to be interesting. But this is year 2 for Toms River South in this predicament, where they were seated a little bit lower than maybe they would have liked, and then honestly, they just carved through. I mean, they beat Highland by 8 runs, and then Toms River South beat Clearview by 1 run, 4-3. That game went to 9 innings. It's not easy, but I have to imagine if you're a team like Toms River South, the mentality is, hey, we got seated lower than we thought we played, and maybe we got seated lower than we deserved. Let's show them that we are not a team to take easy, and we are a team that is intimidating and is fearful, and is a team talented enough to go all the way. I really think that that's what helped Woodstown win the state championship as a 9 seed in 2022, was that teams didn't take them seriously because they were the 9 seed, and it was a fluke win, and then they beat Audubon, and then we're like, okay, what happened now? Because by the time you underestimated them, it's too late. It's already in their head, and they're already smooth sailing.
Yeah, I don't think you can take any team for granted in the playoffs. You gotta go out there and play your game. And
Oh, I know that you can. I'm saying that teams and players do. That's what I'm saying.
100% they do. But bottom line, you cannot do that because I mean, like we look at this current Group 3, the 2-15 matchup between Cherry Hill West Triton 5-3 game, and that game was 3-3 at one point, and then the Clearview Timber Creek was a 4-4 game. I mean, like if those go other ways there, you cannot take these teams for granted because everybody is putting their best on the line, and it doesn't matter how you win, but these teams are competing and they want to win. Every team wants to win in the playoffs, but if you're going to take a team for granted, you could be shocked.
And you will be shocked.
Yeah.
That's the thing is, I'll say as well, 3 out of the 4 games in the second round ended by 1 run. You saw TRS over Clearview 4-3, Delsey over Morristown 5-4. Morristown, again, I really think that game could have gone either way, and on another day, Morristown could have been a 12 seed versus a 9. But TRE over Shawnee 2-1. I really think that Shawnee actually got hurt by playing on Tuesday because of the fact that they ended up getting pushed back and got 3 days of rest. The way that I see it, I'm not putting down Shawnee or anybody, but there were only a handful of games played on Tuesday because of the rain Wednesday and everything got moved back, I should say. But there were, I believe, so in Group 1, there was 1 game played Tuesday. In Group 2, there was 1. In Group 3, there was 1. And in Group 4, there were 0. So everybody in Group 4 played Wednesday or Thursday in the first round. But to make 2 examples out of it, in Group 1, Wildwood played Paulsboro on Tuesday. They go to Maple Shade on Friday and they lose. Shawnee plays Absegami on Tuesday. They win that game and then they lose. I actually think that, with the exception of Haddon Heights, because that was a different case, and even then they won that game by 2 runs. I think they should have won by more. In 2 out of 3 examples where a team that played on Tuesday played on Friday, with the extra day of rest, they lost. I don't know what it is, but it feels like the teams that got better rest didn't play as well, and now some of them are knocked out of the playoffs. And I haven't cracked the numbers exactly, but let's just use Group 3 as an example here. Out of these, one, two, three, four, five, 7 of the 8 games were played on Thursday. Obviously, Wednesday was mostly a washout. But then you had a loss, a win. Let's see here. So 1-1, and then the rest of it. But more or less, what I'm saying is that there were teams that only had one day of rest. Toms River East is a great example of it. They played on Thursday, home to Hamilton, won the game 6-3. Then they travel on the road. I'm sorry, they host Shawnee the next day, back-to-back home games, back-to-back days, and they won that game as well. I guess my words are a little bit jumbled, but the gist of what I'm trying to say is that some of these teams actually did better by having less rest between playoff games.
Yeah,
I don't know what your take is on that.
I don't know what the answer is to it, but maybe just I think the bottom line is that teams just want to play in the playoffs. I mean, like uh, Seneca, there was rain, a lot of rain on Wednesday, and a lot of games were canceled. And talking with some of the Seneca players, they just wanted to play the game on Wednesday, and I think maybe that's what helps teams. I thought Shawnee could easily get to the semifinals because of the duo of Mayberry and Doherty, but it just didn't happen. I mean, like they pitched well in that game, Doherty did, but Tom's River East, a very good program, a very good team, ended up coming on top in extra innings. I don't have an answer to your question why these teams.
Listen,
That,
I don't have an
yeah,
answer to it either. It's interesting to me.
it
Um,
100% is.
and obviously there's a point in Group 4 with Washington Township we're going to talk about in a little
Yeah.
bit, but to close out Group 3, Mainland surprised me. They beat Cherry Hill West 8-1, but they scored 6 runs in the 7th inning of that game. You saw 6 2/3 from Dom DeLuca, and then 6 1/3 from James Miller. James Miller, I mean, he is a fantastic player. He's a junior. We're going to get to see him next year. I don't know what he could do as a senior to improve off of his junior year, because that was an amazing season. 0.80 ERA. You can't get much better than that. I think that Cherry Hill West is going to have a gem with him, but Cherry Hill West, very surprised that they got eliminated how they did. Obviously, last year was different in the sense that they had a really late season fall off. They were 16-6, and then they lost 6 straight games to end the season. That was a very tough thing for them. 2024 was one of the best seasons that they've had in a long time. They won the Diamond Classic, but then they lost in the semifinals to the same team that they beat in the Diamond Classic by a score of 5-4. So, really, for Cherry Hill West, they're a very well coached team. Dan McMaster's a great coach. They just, again, they had some struggles in the regular season, and they were 14-0 in the month of April. They were undefeated in March and April, and then they lost their first regular season game to Shawnee. They made it to the Diamond quarterfinals, lost to Eustis, then they lost to Cherokee and Morristown. They lost 4 of their last 5 games. And this is just another thing where sometimes teams are more prone to running out of gas than others, and some teams have more gas in the tank than others. And in this case, you're right now sitting with a Group 3 Final Four of a 9 visiting a 4 and a 7 visiting a 3. What do you think the odds are that we get another Toms River versus Toms River Group 3 final like we did last year?
It's the chances are high. I mean, like Tom's River South is riding high. I mean, like they just beat probably the top public school you could say in South Jersey. Maybe Northern Burlington's up there, but they just
Right.
beat.
But they're definitely ranked high for
Yeah,
sure.
but they're riding high. Delsey, that's going to be a tough matchup for Delsey. I don't know which way it goes. It could go either way. Same thing with Tom's River East and Mainland. Mainland's not a 7 seed in any means. They're not a traditional 7 seed. But if you go to Tom's River, that's going to make Matt Manley happy. He's going to be happy that it's going to be an all-shore affair in the South Jersey Group 3 conference again. But the chances are high for either matchup here. And Delsey Mainland, that's a good storyline too. Mainland, they fire their coach in the first 2 weeks, and they make it all the way to the sectional
That
final.
is a great story. I didn't even think of that. That is an amazing storyline if that's what happens.
And you would be playing that coach's former school. So
Yeah.
that,
Yeah, that would be one for the ages for sure. But we're going to talk about Group 4. Um, and this has just been the weirdest of those brackets. Obviously, the one with the most upsets in this bracket, we had the 9, the 10, the 11, the 12, and the 14 all win their first round playoff games. Not to mention the fact that the 13 seed made it a 1-0 game, and the 15 seed had to get walked off in extra innings. Toms River North falling to Eastern 2-1, and also the 16 seed held their own versus Kingsway in a 6-1 game. So it goes without saying this Group 4 bracket was odd in the sense that it just felt like nobody knew what could happen. That East Vineland game was an amazing game that came down to the wire. Um, Kingsway, though, they just feel unbothered by it, it seems. They've won their first two games by a score of 6-1 both times. They beat Central the 16, they beat Lenape the 9, and then going down the list, Lenape beat Williamstown 7-5. Washington Township beat Egg Harbor 13-9. We talked about it before we went on the air that it was a really weird game in the sense that Washington Township they led the entire way and they were up 13-5. EHT stormed back for 4 runs in the seventh, but no good there. RV and Southern at a 1-0 game. Varon Delval had the game-winning hit, or at least I should say the go-ahead hit that won the game. And then they had Christian Corbizzolo, who threw a complete game shutout. He hasn't seen a lot of action this year because of injuries. And then Cherokee GCIT. Cherokee, the number 14 seed. I think it's the first time since I've started covering South Jersey that a number 14 seed was considered a favorite. I mean, maybe not an overwhelming favorite, but what I can tell you for sure is, a lot of people talked about that 3 versus 14 game, GCIT versus Cherokee, as if it was a toss-up, which 99% of the time is not the case. You usually favor the number 3 seed, but for GCIT, in their situation, they had lost some big regular season games late. They got bounced in the first round of the Diamond. They were the number 26 seed in the Diamond, but the number 3 seed in South Jersey Group 4. So I don't know what happened there, but what I can tell you for sure is that Cherokee GCIT game was one for the ages. I mean, they were tied up, and GCIT had a 2-1 lead, and then 7 runs in the 5th inning for Cherokee put them over the top. And then they threw 5 pitchers in that game. They threw a bullpen game. They threw Drew Dreby, Jake Litsky, AJ Lamarca, Aiden Wolf, and Brett Jackson, and Lamarca got the win. It didn't look all that impressive on paper. They walked 10 batters, but they still won the game. I mean, that's one of the weirdest playoff games I've ever heard about. I mean, listen, I haven't been around for 20, 30 years, but what I can tell you is that was a odd playoff game to kind of distantly bear witness to, because Cherokee, the 14 seed, on paper, if you told me that they walked 10 batters, I would have told you, oh, so they lost the game. But no, they won 8-7. Crazy stuff.
There were 10 combined hits in the game, and the game was 8-7.
Yeah.
I'm speechless.
And it's not like there were many errors. There was only one on GCIT.
Uh,
It doesn't make any sense to me.
No.
Nothing about that game made any sense. And the fact that Cherokee didn't even advance to the semifinals for it to matter is even crazier.
Yeah, I mean, like this is crazy. I didn't look at this box score previous to just now, but I knew Cherokee won the game, obviously. But this is crazy. I mean, like 14 versus 3 seed, you would expect the 3 seed to win. But we mentioned last week how Cherokee caught fire at the right time, and this obviously was a tough matchup for GCIT. I don't think they wanted this matchup at all, and Cherokee pulled through in the end. It doesn't matter how you win; they won, and then Cherokee played 9 innings against Cherry Hill East in the second round, and East ended up winning on a walk-off wild pitch. So 2 crazy games in back-to-back days for Cherokee.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this much about that second round game, the 14 versus 11. I think that's actually what I predicted in my bracket originally. I had the 14 versus 11 because I just felt like Cherry Hill East had so much momentum. Again, I will just show their NJ.com page. Look at this. April 25th, 2-9. 2-9. And they have won that many games. They have lost 2 games since April the 25th. They lost to Bishop Eustis and they lost to Shawnee. Obviously, Bishop Eustis is great. Shawnee's a great team. Cherry Hill East, man, they are a team that I really think now that I've seen them win 2 games, That could be something. I mean, that Eastern game, they're both Olympic American. They've played
Split.
twice in the
Yeah.
regular season, and East won the first time, which was when they started their run in early May. They won 5-3, and they played in early April with Eastern winning on the road in extra innings by a score of 8-4. So I don't know what to make of that matchup, but it's going to be quite interesting, and I think that the way that it works out, I really think that there's going to be a lot of stakes on the line because Eastern has a big senior class. They obviously had a big senior class last year, and they were able to take it to the Group 4 final. And they've had some great seasons under Rob Christ. Obviously, 2024, they made it to the state final, won the sectional championship. That's all good, but it feels like it feels like that they are the team that has the most firepower. Like Kingsway is a great team, but they were consistently good. They might not have the biggest stars, but they have the best consistency. They have the best ability to beat teams when they need to beat them. And I honestly think that Eastern played a stronger strengths of schedule than Kingsway did, if you ask me. But you've got RV for they made it to the semis 3 years ago. They beat Washington Township 10-0. I think that that game could be really interesting for the sake of momentum. And then again, Cherry Hill East and Eastern have no clue where that game would go. If you told me originally without telling me the teams that it was an 11 versus 2, I would have said, "Oh, well the 2 seed's favored." But Eastern had to walk off Toms River North 2-1 and Eastern had to beat Pennsauken 3-1. I thought that that game wasn't going to be very close because of how they beat them in the regular season. They played in the Camden County final and they won 10 to 12 to 2. So I would have thought, oh, well, Eastern's gonna, they're gonna beat Pennsauken and they're gonna move on. But Pennsauken held their own, and obviously the playoffs are different. But I have no idea who is going to come out of this Group 4 bracket. I think that the most likely, obviously Kingsway Eastern might be the biggest pick, but I mean RV and East is a possibility. Our Kingsway and Cherry Hill East is a possibility. A rematch from last year when East was a 12 seed. So I have no idea, and I don't know if you have any idea, but I certainly don't.
I don't have any ideas, but I do think it is Kingsway to lose. I think they have been the best team in this bracket offensively. I mean, like East put up some runs in their games, but that Eastern game, I think it's going to be low scoring. It's probably going to be Richie Iolucci for Eastern, and it's going to be Mike Ficetti, the Virginia Tech commit for Cherry Hill East.
Right.
And they've already played each other twice. Those teams know each other pretty well. It's going to be a low scoring game. Eastern's offense has to pick it up. They've had 5 runs in 2 games, had to walk off Toms River North at 15 seed. Uh, Struggled against Pennsauken, who they beat 2 weeks ago in 5 innings in the Camden County tournament final. So I think if Eastern's offense picks it up, I think they could get to the sectional final. But I do think this is Kingsway to lose, and RV's going to give them a test. But I think Kingsway wins this group.
I think Kingsway. I still have Eastern winning the group. I think that it's going to be Eastern over Kingsway, but I think that Wednesday is going to be a big test, and Wednesday is going to be huge for both teams. I think RV is going to give Kingsway a good shot. I mean, obviously the 10-run win was very good. It just felt like the bats were rolling. Looking at that game, Washington Township had 5 errors, and I said it before we started, but I said just flat out, I did not envy Washington Township's situation at all. Obviously, a 12 seed winning is a great thing, but they had to play Egg Harbor Township on the road, had to travel about an hour for that. They win that game by 4 runs, and then they have to, go home, go to bed, get some rest, and then travel the very next day, less than 24 hours later, to go to Rancocas Valley for that game as well, which again, it's not easy, and I don't
Nope.
envy the situation there. So, RV got a big win. They got a 5 inning win. That should give them a little bit more confidence going into the game. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to throw Mason Hill in that game. Um, for RV's first round game, again, they threw Corbizzolo, and then they threw Eddie Raminsky, who is a very low walk specialist. He only walked 7 batters going into that game, but RV's got some deep pitching. The only problem is their team ERA is up near 5. Corbizzolo's got 29 innings. Aiden Gaines has 14 innings, but he's got an ERA near 5. Mason Hill has a 4.88 ERA, but he has been quite good in the month of May. He had a game versus Eastern where he threw a complete game effort. He threw versus Cedar Creek. He threw versus Northern Burlington twice, and then threw versus Shawnee and Cherry Hill East. I'm just, in defense of Mason Hill, I'm going to show his stats here on Edger.com. Look at those opponents that he's played: Bridgewater, Raritan, Lenape, Kingsway, Eastern, Cedar Creek, Northern Burlington twice, Shawnee, and Cherry Hill East. I'm sorry for Mason Hill because he hasn't gotten an easy game to play in this year, and it's his one season that he's been at the varsity level. So, I mean, the kid's not even going to college to play ball. He's a pitch to contact guy. 7 walks, 9 Ks. I saw him versus Eastern, and in that game versus Eastern, he only struck out 2 batters. So this is a kid that is a control freak in somebody in the sense that he will dot the strike zone really well, and not to mention the fact that his catcher's behind him, really able to frame good pitching. So I think that for Rancocas Valley, if they throw Mason Hill, again, it sounds ill-advised of me to say that they should throw a guy with a 4.88 ERA, but Mason Hill's built for the big time. Listen, he threw versus Northern Burlington, he threw 5 innings. Obviously, it wasn't the best, but it could have been worse. And then Shawnee got some relief work. Cherry Hill East got some relief work as well. And then looking at the rest of their pitching, you've got the sophomore and Chase Logue. He has had a bit of a down year. He had a 5.05 ERA, but Rominski's been good. And so has Henry Adams as well. I don't know. Like, RV's one of those teams that, like I said, they have really good pitching depth, but their team ERA is up. So if they can strike right on the right day, who knows? I mean, listen, this is a team that had a former Major League Baseball pitcher in Jeff Singer on their staff. I trust that they know what they're doing. I trust that they have a strong enough pitching staff to where they can figure out their priorities. And that game versus RV is going to be very close. And I am indifferent as to which out of these 4 teams advance because it's going to be a good sectional final no matter who you ask.
100%. This group is now wide open with the upsets that we have seen and the games we have seen. RV, you mentioned, they have managed this pitching all year to win games, even though with the high ERAs, they have managed to win games. It's another team in Group 4 that has battled injuries. I mean, like, they haven't had Connor Whitall all season. He played
Right.
at the beginning of the season. The Duke commit potentially could have got drafted. We'll see in these upcoming weeks here, but they've managed to win with all the injuries and the high ERAs and pitching, and I think they're ready for a test against Kingsway. I still think this is Kingsway's group to lose, but any of these 4 teams could win it.
It's very much true, and I don't know. Again, like I said, I do not envy their situation to see how they're going to fare. But what I'll tell you is this is going to be a great group. Now let's talk about out of the 4 groups. We're gonna touch briefly on Group A, Group B, non-public. I mean, we'll talk about Gloucester Catholic, Holy Spirit, Bishop Eustace, and Ranney. But out of the groups right now, looking at the South and Central brackets, I think if Shalleck goes all the way in Group 1, they probably get matched up with either Middlesex or I'd say probably Point Pleasant Beach. I mean, I honestly think that, like, in that Central 1 bracket, they're playing Piscataway Magnet, which is 25-3, but I don't know enough about their strengths of schedule to know if they're playing anybody good. They won both of their first round playoff games by 1 run. My point is that when it comes to these 4 potential sectional championship winners, I think it could really be a good question to ask, who do we think is most likely to go all the way? Because we had a couple of state champions last year. I think most likely, if you ask me, I really think that out of all of the groups, Haddonfield, if they win Group 2, I think they're the most likely to raise a trophy at Rutgers.
I would agree with that. I mean, like, you also have Northern Burlington, who plays in the Central. I think those 2 schools are very potential of winning a state title, and they got there. Now, Group 2 is tough. Rumson Fairhaven in Central Jersey, the 1 seed, they lost their 16-seed home del, so they're out. But Governor Livingston is the team to beat there. So Haddonfield was a close game with them last year. So can Haddonfield get their revenge there and beat them? I think they could if they end up winning the South Jersey group. I think you're right about that. Haddonfield has potential. I think Kingsway has potential with their pitching. I mean, like, they have very deep pitching there. Group 3, Group 1, I don't think so.
Yeah, with all due respect to Group 1, I really think that Middlesex and Point Pleasant Beach are too strong in the Central. And I think in the North Jersey sections, we've got Wallkill Valley, Waldwick, and in North 2, you've got Hanover Park and Cedar Grove. Cedar Grove has just been a very solid team for many years now with Vincent Cordasco. So, again, like I said, I am not going to sit here and act like I know what I'm talking about with
Yeah.
North Jersey because that's not our area.
Nope.
If I asked a North Jersey reporter like Greg Tartaglia or Darren from Varsity Aces to talk about teams in Salem County, well, he wouldn't know too much about them because that's not his forte. And just like that, it's not our forte either. We focus on our area, and it's nothing against those programs. It's just we don't know as much. So yes, I think that when it comes to Group Two, with RFH out of the way, I think that it could very well be Governor Livingston versus Haddonfield. I mean, Governor Livingston, we know them very well for being the first public school in 40 years to have an undefeated season. Last year, they went 28-0. That was amazing. That was an amazing year. You can't discount that by any means. But going into this sectional semifinal, listen, it's Monday. By the end of the week, we're going to have sectional final winners, and I think that's going
Yep.
to be great. Let's briefly touch on Group A and Group B. Um, in their brackets at the moment. There's only one South Jersey opponent left in Group A, at least one true South Jersey opponent in Group A, that being St. Augustine. They're the number 2 seed. We saw Immaculata shut out PVI. CBA upset Union Catholic on the road, 9-2. Red Bank Catholic beat St. John Vianney, and St. Augustine beat Pingree, which was the only upset out of that first round. It was Pingree, the 10 seed. They beat Notre Dame in Mercer County. So you've got a 1-5 and then a 3-2. St. Augustine, obviously, a great team as always. They've got Alex Weingartner, who just got named to be the Gatorade Player of the Year. I was going to touch on that a little bit more, but we'll talk about it when we get into more off-season content.
Award season.
Yeah, award season. We'll talk about that. And I honestly think that just I'm going to do my own all South Jersey teams. I'm going to do first team, second team, third team. Might even do like a fourth and a fifth team. I don't know, but it's going to be um, that's definitely something that I'm gonna get working on, which is gonna take a long time. So be patient, please. But it's going to take a while. Um, but yeah, I mean, listen, it wouldn't take a while if I wasn't doing it the right way. So um, I think the St. Augustine's got a good chance. Immaculata's always been a good team. I've seen them for a few years now. They look pretty good. Non-public B, though, is a little bit more up our alley with the three of the four finalists being South Jersey competitors. Gloucester Catholic will host Ranney. That's a rematch from the 2024, I'm sorry, no, 2023 sectional final in which Ranney, I believe, no, I think it was Gloucester Catholic that won that game in 2023. Um, I just remember that because we were supposed to cover that game. It was supposed to be my first sectional final outside of Audubon, and it was going to be like a huge deal for me. But I actually got stuck because I the game was at 1 o'clock, and I had mistimed my SATs, which I was taking that day as a junior, and I didn't get out until 12:15 because there was one kid who took like the maximum amount of time. So I got held up and I missed out on a sectional final because of a kid that I don't even know. So I'm sorry, kid, to call you out on your SATs, but I mean it doesn't matter now. But yeah, I mean, listen, that was a long time ago. But the game that we're doing on Tuesday is Holy Spirit Bishop Eustace. I'm very excited about this game. We did it. We did this matchup in 2024. Holy Spirit downed Doan Academy. I thought that Doan Academy was going to have what it took to get there, to get to the semifinal versus Bishop Eustace. I don't know what exactly went wrong in that game, but it seems like that again, Doan is a team that is not like your other schools in this bracket because they do not recruit athletically. I was told that point blank by Dan Williamson, the head coach at Doan Academy. They do not recruit for athletics, which all of the other schools on this list do. So you are almost always treading uphill when you're Doan Academy. And again, I have the utmost respect for Doan. I've watched them play earlier this year. They are a fantastic team to watch. And to just have 11 incredibly athletic gentlemen on the field at the same time, I think is great. But Bishop Eustace shut out St. Joe's Hamilton, and Holy Spirit, they beat Wildwood Catholic. Now, Wildwood Catholic is the state leader in hits, and Nick Antonicello, he had, I believe it was like 55 hits, something like that. Wildwood Catholic didn't have the best season, but still, when you can have somebody who hits that much, is hitting, up over like 600, it's incredible. But Gloucester Catholic will host Ranney. Holy Spirit visits Bishop Eustace. Do I think that it's going to be 1v2 again? Maybe, but I don't. I don't know for sure. Mostly because I think Holy Spirit might have a lot of momentum going into that Eustace game.
100%. Holy Spirit's a good squad, and we said who can be that third person, who can pull off an upset over Bishop Eustace or Gloucester Catholic. We've been talking about that since we started this podcast, and maybe Holy Spirit does it. They got their hands full. Bishop Eustace is very solid. They mash the ball, and they'll probably go to J.J. McLaughlin starting tomorrow, or Carson Brent. We'll see where they go, because then you have Passalacqua for the finals.
Yeah, I would have to imagine they're saving Passalacqua for the finals, no doubt.
So I think it's GC Eustace in the final, and that's going to be another great game.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Bishop Eustace, they've got the legendary head coach in Sam Tropiano. Now, Holy Spirit, they've got a younger head coach, Mike Edwards, in his second year there. Former assistant at Mainland, obviously a big help for Coaches versus Cancer down in Atlantic County. They obviously have a lot of weight under their shoulders, considering that they upset Doan Academy on the road. They had to travel a long way for that. They got to travel a long way for this. I think it's more likely that Holy Spirit beats Bishop Eustace than it is that Ranney will beat Gloucester Catholic, if that makes sense. That it would be a 1v6 in the final. I mean, Gloucester Catholic, they have established themselves as the number one overall team in South Jersey without a doubt, just because of how easily they got through the Diamond Classic. I mean, it just really felt like there was nobody there to stop them. Even Clearview got run ruled. I don't think I've ever seen a run rule in a Diamond Classic before, and if it's happened, it's been a long time. I believe one of our friends said it was 2009 when Cherokee won, that it was the last time. Again, in 2009, I don't know if you can tell, but I was 4 years old in 2009. So, no, I was not covering the Diamond Classic back then, and if I was, it wouldn't have been a very good reporter. But what I'll tell you is I'm excited for this non-public B final. Listen, Gloucester Catholic and Bishop Eustace is like the Red Sox and the Yankees. It's a matchup that you could watch 1,000 times with 1,000 different players on the field, and it won't get old. It's been a rivalry since the 60s. It's really just been around for so long that GC Eustace, everybody looks forward to it, and a matchup otherwise feels out of place. I mean, it's now been the past 2 years in a row that this has happened. GC versus Bishop Eustace in the final. 2 years ago was a 1-0 game. Last year was, I believe, 5-1. It wasn't as close, but it still felt like GC had all the momentum in that game. So, to make a long story short, if it's the third year in a row that Gloucester Catholic faces Bishop Eustace in the sectional final, I'm not mad about that by any means.
No.
I think that it really will be exciting to watch, and I think that it'll be something worth noting, something that's something that'll be interesting. And obviously, if to make a programming note, if both teams advance, honestly, if Gloucester Catholic wins, no matter who they play, will be there Friday, Thursday, right? Yeah. Okay.
Thursday.
Public's Thursday, and then private school's Friday, and then our season's
Other
over.
way around.
No, what did I say?
Non-public Thursday.
Non-public
Public
Thursday.
Friday.
Yeah, okay.
It's been a long
Listen
day.
to him.
It's been a long day.
It hasn't been that long. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We've only been up for a few hours, man. Oh man, can't you tell? It's almost time for the season to be over. I mean, I'm not saying I want it to be over. I'm saying that it's been a long season.
There,
yeah, we're getting to the home stretch, and only 16 public schools remain in the South Jersey brackets, and we'll have just 4 remaining after Friday. So thank you, everybody, for watching the South Jersey Starting 9 podcast, episode 12. We've done a dozen of these now. This is incredible what we've been able to do. And obviously, thank you to everybody for your support of this podcast.
Yep.
Really, when I started this out in, what was our first episode? December? I think it was something about that.
Yeah.
It was around that.
Snowing.
Yeah, it was. That's right. It was snowing outside, and we did some off-season news and stuff like that. We did some stuff on coaching changes, and there really wasn't that much to talk about. And I thought to myself, I said, "Is this something that we can really do?" Because I thought to myself, I said, "Is this too niche of a subject?" Well, our viewers and our feedback from the podcast have been overwhelmingly positive, so that tells us that yes, it is good. It is something that we can keep doing. And again, I couldn't be more grateful for the support we've received.
Seriously,
Not
thank you.
over this, not over this, not just over this podcast, but over the entire baseball season. This has been incredibly successful for us, and myself with Dan Wilkins Broadcasting. So, could not thank you enough for your support and your continued support as we trudge on into playoff season. So, I assume we'll be around next week. Um, I'll just make a quick note before we go. I'm going on vacation in the at the end of the month, so when we're probably going to record once next week to preview state finals. Which state finals would be what? That be
The 8th is state semifinals. The 14th, I think,
okay.
is the
So that
state
would be
finals.
okay. That would be next Sunday then. So
13th or the 14th, one of
yeah, so
those
it's
days.
around that. So we'll do a state semifinal matchup. Maybe we do an emergency episode for state finals that's a little bit shorter. I'm not sure. But after that, we're probably, once the season is over, we're probably going to take about a month or so off, come back for like one or two summer episodes, talk about the Tri County Baseball League, talk about, stuff in Cape Cod and transfer portal stuff and what's it called, and maybe some professional stuff like Major League Baseball. I want to do something like an update on maybe around the horn of what South Jersey players are doing in the big leagues. Like I know Davis Schneider from Toronto, he unfortunately got sent down to
Yep.
AAA, hasn't been doing that well that year. But guys like Mike Trout, Zach Gallen. Um, why am I blanking on some
Petty.
of the yeah, Chase Petty, he's up with the Reds right now. I was hoping I saw him when I saw the Reds and the Phillies, but he didn't end up playing. But yeah, it's been really interesting to watch. And then I think over the summer we'll kind of experiment a little bit more with maybe some more fun episodes, like some loose things, some maybe mini games or something like that. Just something that's not strictly news and discussion because sometimes it does get a little bit cold talking about the same things over and over again. So, obviously I'm just brainstorming on the fly here, but I do want to keep this podcast, you know, uplifting, lively, something that you guys can keep coming back to even when we don't have actual games going on during the spring months here in South Jersey. But anyways, I'm Dan Wilkins, along with my co-host David Cohen of Rowan University. We'll see you next week. Best of luck to all teams competing in sectional semifinals this week. We will be at Holy Spirit versus Bishop Eustace Tuesday. Tom's River South at Bishop Eustace. I'm sorry, no. Tom's River South at Delsey on Wednesday. And then Thursday is to be determined. Friday is to be determined. We don't know where we're going to be. We're going to figure it out. But we'll see you next week. Have a good one, everybody. And thank you for watching the South Jersey Starting Nine podcast.